My name's Tony Powell, and my territory is, well, I've got two territories actually. I've got Riverhead and I've got Huapai. I've been with Jim's Mowing now for 5 years. I was a banker for 37 years. I've always liked being outdoors anyway. My life aside of banking was actually we live on a lifestyle block. For 20 odd years we've been doing that. And so it was always in the back of my mind. It was sort of like, oh, that'd be something I'd quite like to do, but I never was brave enough. And then I just eventually had enough. I just had enough. The world of banking had changed so much from what I liked. And I thought, to hell with it. Why not give it a go? And then I had to convince my wife, of course. When I stop and think back now, over the last 5 years, all the challenges that have been with running the business, whether it's equipment and things like that, whether it's... The client piece wasn't such a big issue to me because most of my banking career had actually been dealing with clients and customers. So that actually was not such a big deal. But it was just the suddenly moving into this world of a manual type role where you're completely reliant upon machinery and things like that. And then of course you have COVID's hit and lockdowns and have to manage your business through that, and you've got to manage your business finances and so on and so on. It's been challenging, but I've got to be honest, every single challenge I felt I've actually grown from. I've never felt like, oh, it's quite the reverse, quite the reverse. So I certainly mow, and I've got an awful lot of mowing to do. Where I am is predominantly part rural, part residential. So I get a lot of work where I deal with clients with lifestyle blocks and things like that. Many of them are city people who've moved out and they've actually got no idea what to even do with the property. So having been there, done that for 20 odd years and made the mistakes myself, there's a fair few I can help them with. So I do a little bit of lifestyle block consultancy if people need it. Obviously there's gardenings, there's hedge trimmings, there's tidies of gardens, though I've got to be honest, I do less of that now because I have so much grass to mow. When we bought the original franchise Riverhead, it was 32 clients. It was basically a 20-hour-a-week business. We grew that to I'd grown that to just on 100. And then the opportunity came up to get for the second franchise. So I split off a good slice. The two franchises are literally side by side, which is a lovely way of having it. So as time wore on, I never intended to be employing people. I mean, I'd had years of employing people and I was sort of like, maybe not. But I've been very, very lucky. I've got I've got a fairly unique crew actually. My crew are all women. So I have three young university students who basically each work for me 1 day a week. So out of a sort of a 5-day week essentially, 3 days I've got one of the girls working with me, 2 days I'm on my own. And it works nicely, it works really well. There's no doubt about it, I'm perceived as expensive, and quite frankly I don't care about that. I'm perfectly happy for people to think that. But invariably what I've tended to find is that, look, I will lose out to independents, absolutely. They'll undercut me price, things like that. But the number of times now over 5 years where I've lost out to an independent and then, a matter of 6 months later, the client or the person I originally quoted to is on the phone to me and it's, he's getting a bit unreliable. He's just not actually turning up. I've got one guy currently who is an independent out my way. I've now picked up 8 clients of his in the space of 2 weeks. He just basically gave up and he hasn't turned up now for 6 weeks. And we've got commercial clients and residential clients and their lawns are now like this. And he's just given up. And there's no, I think with a lot of them, look, don't get me wrong, there are some who are very good and they've been around a long time. But a lot of them, they don't have any business acumen whatsoever. And so they just don't apply a business focus to what they do. It's sort of like, oh yeah, I'll go and mow some lawns and I'll get some money. But they forget about the client piece, the client service bit. I mean, one of my absolute 100% is, and I've geared the business accordingly, is I do not want my clients to ever be inconvenienced because of something that's going on in my world. As far as I'm concerned, it's not their problem. Their problem is that getting that mown, that's it. So it will be mown come hell or high water. We deal with it. As a business behind the scenes, we deal with it. I do know one or two guys who will actually do hard landscaping work. I mean, I think that's the beauty of the gym's franchise as well. I mean, you can tailor to essentially what you want to do. As I say, a lot of my business is hinged towards mowing because there's just so much of it around, and it's relatively simple to do that. But I know for some of the other guys who are in residential areas, particularly tightly packed residential areas like this, they stretch out into all sorts of stuff, as I say, particularly landscaping and so on. I love it. I absolutely love it. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I recount one story. Earlier this year, December, on the 4th of December, I remember it vividly, I actually ruptured my Achilles tendon on there. So I'm just coming back from it now. But, you know, probably one of the most, I would suggest, probably one of the worst things that could ever happen to a self-employed mowing contractor is to be physically unable to do your job. And it was like, how the heck do I keep this business running? I was lucky, I had the girls, and the girls stepped up and we managed it through. In fact, we actually grew our client base even during that time. But it was another challenge. It was a huge challenge, but it was another challenge. And every single challenge has I've just felt like I've grown and I've learned more. So I love it. I would never, ever, ever go back to the corporate world again, ever. Certainly do your homework. Absolutely do your homework. You've got to be really sure of not only the business that you're buying into, the franchise, things like that. You've also got to be really sure about, in particular financially, what do you need to live on? You need to be really, really, really clear on what you need to be baseline. I've got to earn that. It's like, and essentially, once you're at that point, you know that you're in a good position to at least say, okay, now I can assess this properly. Second thing I would say is, do not skimp on the equipment that you buy. If you have to stretch it, to buy the best equipment that there is, because it will not let you down. You cannot afford to be partway through jobs with gear that just packs up on you. And then I think really thirdly, probably the most important thing is, if you do go into it, you have to run it like a business. It is not even if you are thinking it's lifestyle and, oh yeah, you know, I want less hours of the time I work. You need to make sure though that it's still run in a business-like fashion, that you chase up your debts, you're invoicing on time, you don't let GSTs and things like that go outside of time and so on. So if you want to request a free quote, just simply go to the website or call the 0800 number and request your quote, and somebody will be in touch with you within 2 hours.